Quick Crypto, bringing you quick crypto news. April has been a very good month for the crypto market. Bitcoin retested $96,000 for the first time in just 2 months, and altcoins also saw a very strong recovery, some stronger than others. While some corrective behavior is expected in the immediate short term, in my opinion, not financial advice of course, the global liquidity and macroeconomic news has me very optimistic that May incoming will also be very bullish for crypto and potentially your last chance to get these 3 altcoins before they take off. Don't be emotional, be logical, and let's dive into the badness. Now for me, there are 4 or 5 key metrics that I'm going to be taking into account for this video, 4 of them being macro developments and the one outlier being Donald Trump. So to start off with, the global liquidity index, the M2 supply, it is looking extremely bullish for the crypto market. The M2 is not a golden bullet by any means, but is an extremely accurate indicator with an 80% correlation to the price of Bitcoin. And as we are heavily in a Bitcoin dominant market right now, this M2 supply also has a strong correlation to the performance of altcoins, because alts are following Bitcoin. As we can see, the M2 supply has Bitcoin seeing a relatively small pullback over the coming weeks, but finishing above 100k going into June. This leads me to believe that there is still more gas in the tank for Bitcoin and crypto going into May, and it is still basically only up from here. This is also extremely bullish for us as investors as well, because this M2 supply is determined by the amount of money available in the economies of the United Kingdom and Europe and China and Japan, and most importantly, the United States. Remember though, we are yet to see rate cuts and or quantitative easing, money printing from the US Federal Reserve, which means there's a very strong likelihood this global liquidity index, this M2 supply, will rally up much further, much higher from here. Speaking of which, this is the second macro metric for the video, the Federal Reserve and the FOMC meetings. The next FOMC meeting is on May 7th, which is a little over a week away from here. And this meeting will set a strong precedent for how the Fed is expected to behave for the remainder of the year. Now, personally me, I'm not expecting rate cuts at this meeting, although it is not impossible and would be extremely bullish if we do get some surprise rate cuts, but I'm not expecting it. I'm expecting though this FOMC meeting to be a hawkish one, meaning that Jerome Powell's demeanor will suggest rate cuts happening fairly soon, potentially in June, following the bullish sentiment of the M2 supply. My reasoning for believing this sort of factor is based on the other 2 macro metrics, being the inflation data and also the unemployment data. The unemployment data is releasing on the first Friday of every month. That's how it normally works. So in just 5 days time, on the 2nd of May, we will see the unemployment data for April happen this month. Now, last month was very bullish. We saw almost 2 times more jobs created than expected. So if this trend continues, that could incentivize the Fed to announce rate cuts early, potentially the next meeting in 5 days time, as the economy is showing consistent signs of strength, but it's still slowing down and the markets are starting to stagnate and struggle still. It's seeing a recovery, which is great, but the stock market, at least, that is still struggling. Now, for me, regardless of the unemployment data, even if it's more favorable, I think it'll just make the Fed more hawkish for the next meeting in mid-June. Because what the Fed do care about a lot more than unemployment data is the inflation data. And this next inflation data is the most important to date. The CPI inflation being released on May 13th is a very big factor, right? And it will be the first time Trump's tariffs have been factored into the inflation. As Jerome Powell has mentioned repeatedly, tariffs are expected to increase inflation. So depending on how much we see an increase in inflation, because there probably will be one as tariffs have now been priced in, this will also have a massive effect on the markets and the Fed's decision. The lower the interest rates, the lower the inflation even, the higher the chance Jerome Powell decides to cut rates, as cutting rates causes more inflation. So if inflation is too high, the Fed will later sit back on the sidelines and wait for it to come down. Although, in saying all of this, while all of this is very important and impactful for the markets, the one outlier is Trump. Trump has a much bigger influence right now on the markets. So if he announces some surprise retaliatory tariffs or failed negotiations with another nation, then we could expect further pullbacks. So do keep that in mind when you're making your investment decisions. Or for more information on what I am personally doing in this particular ball, you can follow me here, check out the VIP group at wop.com/coin-factory. Through alpha institutional research documents, trade alerts, and much more, we are continuing to capitalize and make money in this market. You can check us out for a 7-day free trial period as well. So again, wop.com/coin-factory. You can find the link down below in the description. Come and check us out. Now, as I mentioned, the macro looks extremely bullish and good going into May, but these three altcoins, in my personal belief, again not financial advice, I think these three altcoins could outperform the rest of the market. All three showed some of the strongest signs of strength in April this month, and they have some significant announcements and or developments happening in May as well. First and foremost, and of course, it just has to be Kaspa. Like Bitcoin, a truly decentralized proof-of-work cryptocurrency, in April, Kaspa witnessed over a 2x from its bottom of 5.3 cents to just short of 11 cents. And this bullish momentum, in my belief, is expected to continue based on a number of factors. Kaspa is going to be reborn in just a few days' time. On May 5th, Kaspa will be going through the 10 BPS hard fork crescendo activation, which in theory will make Kaspa 10 times faster than it already is, while remaining decentralized, and this increase in BPS and speed will also increase the security. Kaspa is also going to be 6,000 times faster than Bitcoin, over 200 times faster than Ethereum. It's going to be it could be an explosive upgrade. Game changing, no doubt. Kaspa is a proof of work as well, meaning the miners make up the network. And as Kaspador highlights here, his old KS0 Kaspa miner will finally become relevant again, not for profits per se, but for the beauty of actually hitting some blocks and sustaining the network. There will now be, with 10 BPS, technically speaking, a 10 times higher likelihood the miners will hit a block following 10 BPS, which may incentivize miners to come back to the project, increasing Kaspa's hash rate, which is a key indicator for increased adoption and security of the project. This is already starting to funnel in some FOMO, as we can see from the price, but not as much as the promise of smart contracts and stablecoins. Kaspador also leaked some information about the Kasplex team, who are aiming to build the first layer 2 on Kaspa. The two most important factors is that the public testnet is right around the corner and the mainnet is not far off either. Kasplex announced a couple days ago that they are getting ready for a layer 2 public testnet, and if I was to hazard a guess, it will be sometime around the Crescendo hard fork, as Kasplex also announced the release of their new full node indexer update 2.03, which node operators have to fully upgrade this before the Crescendo hard fork. This new node indexer is adapted to 10 BPS, which of course it needs to be, introduce features for the upcoming built-in virtual machine mechanisms, which is also really reassuring, but the most important one is the 4 new opcodes: issue, chown, burn, and blacklist. Stablecoins typically they need smart contracts to function, but these 4 opcodes will allow the implementation of stablecoins on Kaspa before the release of native smart contracts. So while no date has been set in the strict sense for when we see its implementation on Kaspa, many signs suggest that May will be the month we see Kaspa, 10 BPS, Kasplex, Ethereum virtual machines, so smart contracts, and potentially some stablecoin implementation, as the KEF has also confirmed that they are in talks with USDT Tether, USDC Circle, and others since the end of last year, December 2024. As highlighted here from Kaspador, the future of Kaspa is glorious and it starts at 10 BPS. More builders are coming. We will soon see staking, DeFi, AMMs, and much more. And there was also an interview, which you could check out throughout my channel, even in my free Discord server as well, with Kaspador, where he confirms they have been in contact with other blockchains to bridge their ecosystem on kaspa. So my optimism for kaspa has never been higher for May and the months and years to follow. Now, the second cryptocurrency that I think could surprise a lot of people in May has actually been following kaspa's price movement quite closely for a while now, and this one is called Bessent, aka Tau. Like kaspa, Tau also saw a little over a 2x in value, going from roughly $170 to $375 in April, which is very, very insane. And was definitely one of the biggest gainers in April, like kaspa was as well, one of the strongest projects. Now, while some sources suggest and mention that Tau's incentive mechanism has both elements of proof of stake and proof of work due to the ability to stake Tau to support validators and mine it, its core consensus for rewarding people is centered around the demonstrated intelligence and usefulness of the machine learning contribution. So actually, Tau is a proof of intelligence, not proof of work, not proof of stake, it is proof of intelligence. Now, Tau have been following kaspa's chart closely, as I mentioned, and this may just be a coincidence, of course, but one thing that I do believe is that AI is a massively undervalued market and is going to see considerable adoption in the coming months. Notorious content creator, YouTuber Alex Becker here recently posted a video where he stated that AI is by far the hottest narrative in all investing right now, and I couldn't agree more, and that Tau is going to do a crazy move like $10 billion, maybe something more, and it will be a top 15 cryptocurrency. With Tau currently sitting at around a $3 billion market cap, that would put us over a 3x in value from here and put us close to a $1.5 thousand price target, which would be nuts. Now, as I mentioned earlier, BTC.D, Bitcoin dominance, is at all-time highs right now. So alts tend to follow the M2 quite closely, and they follow Bitcoin. So in that regard, the M2 has Tau continuing its momentum past $500 this month and surpassing 1.1k by August time, which is a crazy multiplier from here. Again, that's without factoring in the US money printer and rate cuts just yet, and even the regulatory frameworks that are coming soon out in America as well. That'll see a lot more institutional capital flowing into crypto. Tau mirrors Bitcoin's money structure at almost a 1-to-1 ratio as well, and their first halving will happen at the end of this year, December 2025. So this could also help further drive demand, and the supply of Tau becomes more scarce while demand for AI increases tenfold. So by that logic, Tau could see a lot higher price pumps in this cycle in this year going forward. Bessent is poised to revolutionize decentralized intelligence, which is why I see the potential it outperforms the market in May as well. This video gives a great breakdown about Tau. Listen very, very closely.
Talk to me about Bessent first. If you ask 5 people, you're going to get 15 answers. But here's the thing. It's just like Bitcoin. In 2012, if you asked 5 people about Bitcoin, you're going to get 5 different answers. It's what Bessent is a decentralized network for intelligence. And the idea of Bessent is to create this global permissionless platform on which any challenge can get solved by incenting the world's global intelligence to solve that problem. And the incentive is this crypto token. It could be compute, it could be inference, it could be data, it could be training, pre-training. There's subnets that have been launched to predict the price of Bitcoin, to predict sports scores. And so in the way that, 30 years ago with the internet, when the browser was launched and it created this Cambrian explosion of websites, before that, you would access the internet via Prodigy and America Online, akin to today's OpenAI and Claude. The Tensor is ushering in a whole new area, openness and permissionless innovation.
The final asset that I believe will outperform the market in May is called Sui, but for slightly different reasons than the previous 2 projects. Kaspa is going to be reborn, 10 BPS, smart contract, you name it. Tau will leech off the growing demand of AI. Sui will explode due to their impressive infrastructure. Of course, it's still very fast and got a lot of adoption coming through, but mainly Sui's explosion, in my belief, will come from their continuous VC backing and insiders who want this project to pump further. Sui has the largest market cap of all the 3 altcoins I mentioned in this video, yet it saw a pump of similar magnitude from $1.73 to $3.79. So again, over a 2x, which again was one of the biggest pumpers in the recent month. Sui is sitting at an impressive $11 billion market cap and is just outside the top 10 cryptocurrencies. People who are predicting a run similar to Solana with Sui in its first cycle, they are not kidding, and it's a real possibility, meaning Sui could reach as high as $24 this cycle, an $80 billion market cap. Sui's bullish momentum has been mainly influenced by the repeated votes of confidence they have received from Wall Street institutions like Grayscale. Grayscale recently announced they're launching the Sui Trust, which for those who know their history, a Bitcoin trust for Grayscale was launched before it was converted into an ETF, so this is setting the stage for Sui to receive ETFs later on this cycle as well. Grayscale have continued pumping the project as well, stating a couple days ago that Sui is building infrastructure to unify Web 2 and Web 3. From seamless asset control across chains to private on-chain AI data sharing, Sui is aiming to simplify blockchain, payments, and real-world asset integration with user-friendly tools. There's no doubt that Sui is going to be great at onboarding institutions. Will it last a cycle or last after that? We'll have to wait and see. But out of the three, Sui has been following the M2 supply closer than the rest, and the M2 supply suggests Sui could return to all-time high by the end of the month, which would be insane, and this also could depend on the announcements they make at their Sui base camp, which is happening on the 1st and 2nd of May, which is only 3 to 4 days from now. So depending on what they announce, from main stage keynotes and ecosystem announcements to dev stage for builders and more deep dives, workshops, curated networking and partner showcases, this could set a foundation for what we will see price-wise going into May and beyond for Sui as well. There is still so much more to delve into and cover. Institutions are even more optimistic than I am for the following months and years to follow. If you want to find out a lot more, then come check out the Coin Factory VIP group. We did it in our recent roundtable just earlier today. With that being said, as always, do your own research and remember, don't be emotional, be logical, and I'll see you in the next one.